Right, so we're diving into taxation in India today. You made a great choice. It's a fascinating topic. We've got academic papers, historical accounts, legal analyses all ready to go. And the mission here, well, not just understanding what Indian taxes are, but the why and how things are changing.
Yeah, it's a system with deep roots and constant evolution, which makes it so interesting.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We're going way back.
Mm.
Ancient India. Did you know that texts like Kautilya's Arthashastra actually mentioned taxation? It wasn't just philosophy back then. They were figuring out how to run an empire.
Yeah, taxation's woven into governance, and in India that goes back millennia. We see land taxes funding irrigation projects during the Chola dynasty. But get this, if a harvest failed, farmers could petition to have their taxes deferred.
Wait, seriously? That's like built-in disaster relief centuries ago. But not all empires were so considerate, though, right?
True. Mughal-era records show tax burdens becoming so heavy that they led to revolts in some regions, highlighting the double-edged sword of taxation. It can fuel progress, but if mismanaged, it fuels unrest.
Seems like a constant struggle to find that balance. And then British colonialism threw a whole wrench in the works.
Indeed. Systems like Zamindari, Railtwari, and Mahalwari were mainly about maximizing revenue for the British crown, not the welfare of Indians.
And, of course, the salt tax.
Yeah.
Like Taxation 101 for how not to do it. It became a symbol of oppression and fueled the independence movement.
Yeah, the salt tax shows how deeply taxation is, intertwined with social and political forces. It's never just about numbers on a ledger.
Okay, so 1947, independence. Finally, India could create a tax system designed for its own people. But where do you even begin after centuries of such varied approaches?
Well, the initial focus was on nation building, funding infrastructure, education, healthcare. The Income Tax Act of 1961 laid a lot of the groundwork, but it's been constantly refined over the decades.
So they had to balance these age-old practices with this modern independent nation they were building.
Absolutely, and that process is still ongoing. India's tax system is very much a work in progress, always adapting.
Okay, enough history for now. Let's get practical. What are we actually dealing with today? Direct and indirect taxes. Break those down for me. I always get them confused.
Sure. The key difference is who bears the burden. Direct taxes are on your income or profits. You pay them straight up. Indirect taxes are built into the prices of goods and services.
So income tax, that's the big one for most of us, right? And corporate tax for businesses. Makes sense. You earn, you pay.
Precisely. And then on the indirect side, we have the goods and services tax, or GST. This was a huge change, replacing a bunch of separate taxes with one unified system.
Yeah, the GST, everyone talks about it. I get that it simplified things.
Right.
But wasn't there pushback too? It seemed like a massive shift for businesses to handle.
There were definitely challenges. Some saw it as overly complex initially, and certain sectors felt it hit them harder than others. But the goal was to streamline things and create a more transparent system.
So who's actually running this whole tax show? Who do we picture when we think of like the tax man, so to speak?
There are two main bodies, CBDT for direct taxes, CBIC for indirect. They handle registration, ensure compliance, and collect revenue. It's a complex operation with a lot of moving parts.
And appeals, dispute resolution, that whole side of things too. Imagine there are a lot of gray areas in tax law that lead to disagreements.
Absolutely. There's a whole framework in place to deal with those situations, which is important for ensuring fairness and protecting taxpayer rights.
But let's be real. No system is perfect. What are some of the biggest headaches when it comes to Indian taxation? Where do things get messy?
One persistent problem is tax evasion. The amounts lost are staggering, which has huge consequences for funding public services and development projects.
I've seen those numbers. Mind-blowing. But isn't there a legal framework to try and prevent that? Like, isn't it clearly laid out what you have to pay and how?
Definitely. India's constitution mandates that taxes must be imposed by law, ensuring transparency and a clear process, but that doesn't mean enforcement is always easy.
So laws are one thing. Actually making sure everyone follows them is a whole other beast. What are some of the challenges on that front?
Administrative difficulties for one, and then there's societal resistance to taxation, a complex issue with historical roots. Changing mindsets and building trust in the system takes time.
All right, we laid the groundwork. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Specific taxes, starting with the one we all love to hate, income tax.
Yes, the cornerstone of direct taxation. The Income Tax Act of 1961 sets the stage. But it's been amended so many times, it's practically a novel by now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, India's gone through so many changes since then. The tax system has to adapt, right?
Absolutely. One major shift was the introduction of a new tax regime in 2020. It offers lower tax rates, but fewer deductions.
Okay, so you trade complexity for a potential break. I can see how that would appeal to some people,
Yeah.
but maybe not everyone.
Exactly. The old regime, with its maze of deductions, still exists. It's all about choosing what works best for your individual situation.
Yeah, it's like a game, trying to figure out how to optimize your tax liability.
Right.
It's a game I wish I was better at.
Yeah.
But seriously, how do they even calculate income tax? It's not like a flat rate for everyone, right?
You're right. It's based on tax slabs. The more you earn, the higher the percentage you pay, which is known as a progressive system.
Makes sense.
Mm.
But then there are deductions, exemptions, all those things that supposedly lessen the blow. I always get lost trying to figure out what I qualify for.
Yeah, that's where tax professionals can be a lifesaver. They can help you navigate those complexities and potentially save you a lot of money.
So income tax for individuals, got it. Now what about businesses? They have their own set of rules, right? Enter corporation tax.
Precisely. It's levied on the profits earned by companies. And as of January 2022, the standard rate for domestic companies is 22%.
So a flat rate for corporations. But a tiered system for individuals, that seems like a pretty big difference.
There are reasons for that. Historical, economic, and political factors all play a role. But one key difference is that corporation tax rates are often used as a policy tool to attract investment or promote certain industries.
Interesting. So it's not just about raising revenue, it's also about shaping economic activity.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the goods and services tax.
The GST, we touched on it earlier. But this is the one that seems to be on everyone's mind, both businesses and individuals. Was it really as revolutionary as people say?
It was a massive undertaking, replacing a whole web of indirect taxes with one unified system. It definitely simplified things, but not without some bumps along the way.
Yeah, I imagine there was a lot of confusion and adjustment needed,
Ah.
especially in the beginning. How did businesses even keep up with all the changes?
The learning curve was steep, and some argued that certain sectors were disproportionately affected, but the goal was greater transparency and efficiency. And over time, the system has become more streamlined.
Okay, so remind us again, how does the GST actually work? Is it just one flat rate on everything?
No, it's more nuanced than that. There are different GST rates for different goods and services. And remember those different types of GST, CGST, SGST,
That GST
YG.
seemed pretty complicated to me.
It is a bit like a puzzle, but the pieces fit together logically. CGST goes to the central government, SGST to the state government, and IGST applies to interstate transactions.
So if I buy something online from a seller in another state, that's where IGST comes in.
Exactly. It ensures a seamless flow of goods and services across state borders.
Okay, starting to make more sense now. But even with this unified system, haven't there been legal challenges and debates about how it's implemented?
You're right. There have been some high-profile cases that tested the boundaries of the GST framework. The Union of India v. Mohit Minerals case, for example, raised questions about the powers of the GST Council and whether its decisions override Parliament and state legislatures.
So even with the best intentions, you run into those tricky questions of federalism and who gets to decide what.
It highlights the complexities of implementing such a sweeping reform in a diverse and democratic country like India.
It seems like the GST is a constantly evolving story, always being tweaked and refined.
Absolutely. And those legal challenges actually help clarify the law and make the system stronger over time.
It's a reminder that taxation isn't just about crunching numbers. It's intertwined with legal interpretations and political realities.
Precisely. It's a dynamic system, constantly adapting to changing circumstances.
So we've covered income tax, corporation tax, and the GST. But beyond the mechanics of these taxes, what are the real-world impacts? How do these policies affect people's lives?
That's a crucial point. Taxation isn't just an abstract concept. It has very real consequences for individuals and society as a whole.
Right, it's about funding essential services, infrastructure development, social welfare programs, all those things that contribute to a better quality of life.
Exactly. But if the tax system is seen as unfair, overly burdensome, or riddled with loopholes, it can lead to distress, evasion, and even social unrest.
So finding that balance between effective revenue generation and maintaining public trust is key.
It is a delicate balance. A well-functioning tax system should be seen as fair, transparent, and ultimately beneficial to the people it serves.
And speaking of challenges, let's revisit that issue of tax evasion. We've all heard those staggering figures. But what are the ethical implications? It's not just about lost revenue, is it?
It goes deeper than that. Tax evasion erodes the very fabric of a society. When people don't contribute their fair share, it undermines the principles of collective responsibility and shared burdens.
It's almost like a domino effect. If people see others getting away with not paying, it creates a sense of, well, why should I bother?
Exactly. And the consequences are far-reaching. Essential services are underfunded, development projects are stalled, and the gap between the haves and have-nots widens.
So it's not just about individuals trying to save a few rupees. It's about the collective good and ensuring a level playing field for everyone.
Precisely. And while enforcement is crucial, it's also important to address the root causes of evasion, such as complexity in tax laws and a lack of trust in the system.
Seems like a multi-pronged approach is needed, tackling both the symptoms and the underlying causes. But how is technology changing the game? Is it making things easier or more complex?
Technology is a double-edged sword when it comes to taxation. On one hand, it's streamlining tax administration, making it easier for taxpayers to file returns, and enhancing the government's ability to track and monitor compliance.
So things like online filing platforms,
Yeah.
digital payment systems, and data analytics are bringing much-needed efficiency to the system.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, technology also creates new avenues for tax avoidance and evasion. Sophisticated schemes and cross-border transactions can make it difficult for authorities to keep up.
Sounds like a constant arms race,
Yeah.
with tax authorities trying to stay one step ahead of those seeking to exploit loopholes.
It's a challenge for sure, but technology also offers solutions. Data analytics, for example, can help identify patterns of evasion and target enforcement efforts more effectively.
So it's about harnessing technology for good, using it to create a fairer and more efficient system.
Exactly. Technology is a powerful tool, and it's up to us to use it wisely to shape the future of taxation in a way that benefits everyone.
Okay, so we went deep into the history, the mechanics of Indian taxation. Now let's look ahead. What big trends are on the horizon?
Well, one thing's for sure, the world is changing fast, and India's tax system will have to keep up. Globalization, digitization, climate change, these are major forces shaping the landscape.
Okay, let's break those down. Globalization first. How does a more interconnected world impact something like taxes?
It's more intertwined than you might think. Money and businesses move across borders seamlessly now. This can be great for growth, attracting foreign investment, but it also creates opportunities for tax avoidance.
So companies could shift profits to countries with lower tax rates, and India loses out on revenue.
That's the challenge. India needs to find that sweet spot. Competitive tax policies to attract investment, but also strong measures to prevent revenue leakage. It's a delicate balancing act.
I imagine international cooperation is crucial here. You can't just tackle this country by country.
Absolutely. Things like double taxation treaties, information sharing agreements, those are essential tools. The OECD's BEPS project, for example. It's a global effort to address tax avoidance by multinational corporations.
So it's almost like a game of chess, trying to anticipate moves and create a system that's fair but protects India's interest.
It is a complex game, and the rules are always evolving. Now add in the rise of the digital economy, and things get even more intricate.
Okay, the digital economy, that's everything online, right? E-commerce, digital services, all the platforms we use every day. How does that mess with traditional tax systems?
Think about it. Where do you even tax a company that operates mostly online, with no physical presence in a particular country? How do you assess the value they generate when transactions are happening virtually?
It's like the tax man is trying to catch smoke. These digital businesses are everywhere and nowhere.
It's a real dilemma. Traditional tax rules weren't designed for this. That's why we're seeing new concepts emerge, like digital permanent establishment or significant economic presence to try and capture these activities.
So it's a race to keep up, both for India and globally, finding ways to adapt these age-old tax principles to this brand new digital landscape.
Exactly. And it requires a coordinated effort. No single country can solve this alone. We need international consensus to create a level playing field so digital businesses contribute fairly wherever they operate.
Sounds like a lot is riding on getting this right. But even beyond these global trends, there are internal pressures for reform too, right? We talked about some of the challenges India faces within its own system.
Absolutely. Complexity, administrative burdens, loopholes that lead to litigation. These all need attention. There's a growing recognition that India needs a simpler, more taxpayer-friendly system.
It's not just about collecting revenue. It's about making the system work for everyone. If it's too complex, people get frustrated. Compliance suffers, and that helps no one.
Precisely. So we're seeing a push for greater transparency, accountability, and a focus on technology to streamline processes, pre-filled tax forms, online dispute resolution, even using data analytics to target enforcement.
So technology as a solution, not just a disruptor.
Exactly.
But let's not forget the biggest disruptor, climate change. How does that factor into the future of taxation?
It's a huge factor. There's a growing recognition that tax policies can be a powerful tool to incentivize environmentally friendly behavior and promote a shift to a greener economy.
So using taxes to nudge people in the right direction, things like carbon taxes, to discourage polluting activities, tax breaks for renewable energy investment.
Exactly. It's about making polluters pay for the environmental damage they cause and rewarding those making sustainable choices. It's a way to align economic incentives with environmental goals.
It's like using taxation to reshape behavior, not just fund government activities.
It is. And as India aims to achieve its climate targets and build a more resilient future, we can expect to see more innovative tax policies that promote sustainability and green growth.
It's exciting to think about taxation, not just as a burden, but as a tool to build a better future.
It's a reminder that tax policy is about much more than just numbers. It reflects our values, our priorities, and the kind of world we want to create.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways? What should our listener be thinking about as they navigate this complex and ever-changing landscape?
First, stay informed. The world of taxation is constantly evolving, so keep learning and engage in the conversation. Second, think critically. Don't just accept the status quo. Ask questions about why we have taxes, how they're used, and how they impact our lives.
It's about seeing the bigger picture, understanding the connection between taxation and the well-being of society.
Exactly. And finally, remember that you have a voice. Advocate for policies that align with your values, demand transparency and accountability, and participate in shaping a fairer, more sustainable future.
What a fantastic note to end on. It's been a fascinating journey through the world of Indian taxation, from its ancient roots to its digital frontiers, from the challenges of evasion to the opportunities for positive change.
We hope our listener has gained valuable insights and a renewed appreciation for this complex and crucial aspect of our nation's journey.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. Until next time. Back down.